Phoenix had a very impressive showing in their fourth quarter comeback efforts against the Sacramento Kings in the all-important game and the penultimate game of their regular season slate. It was one that they obviously came back to win by 1 point, and in that fourth quarter, spearheaded by Bradley Beal's 12 points and him generally operating in the lineup without Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, the Suns were able to compile an offensive rating of 142.9. And in that fourth quarter stretch, they were +8. And if you condense it down to the last 4 minutes and 29 seconds, they were also +8 in that specific stretch where they were able to draw back even and then ultimately go up by a single point heading into the final possession before getting the stop to win the game. So let's just kind of dive into some of what was going on within their two-way process. It's a little bit more lenient to the offensive side of things, but there's definitely going to be some reps where we're talking about the defense in it as well. And a whole lot of Bradley Beal. So let's go ahead and dive into the film. Just kind of dive into some takeaways that I think are going to be meaningful for this team going forward within their process and closing games. All right, so we talked about Bradley Beal the last week and some change now being used in lineups to open second quarters and open fourth quarters without Devin Booker and Kevin Durant on the floor. I'll have some words coming on the offense and how effective it is and how it looks different at times when he's operating on the floor without those two. Nonetheless, we see Bill bringing it up the floor. And I think one of the biggest things is that they get into their offense a little bit quicker when Bradley Beal is initiating offense. And I think that's important for them because obviously the more time they have to play with on the clock in the half court, the more effective their offense becomes, the more strenuous it becomes to a defense. And they just create so many more advantages. And we see a little bit of that right here. Obviously not a direct shot coming out of the action. But again, this is all just Bradley Beal and his downhill prowess and ability to just poke and prod and find his way into the paint, generate advantage to get the defense rotating from there. And we see just that here. The Suns go to the elbow action, and then it flows into stack, and then Spain pick and roll. So you got elbow, stack, and then Spain pick and roll. Eric Gordon setting a quick back screen, and he actually ends up ghosting it this time with Alex Len holding two to the ball on Bradley Beal. Beal still able to turn this corner. And before I even get to this point, this is the difference in pretty much any context that Bradley Beal was playing in with the Wizards and where he is in this context with the Suns. The spacing, the ways they're able to manipulate the spacing, obviously in stack formation, having 3 players stacked in the middle third of the floor and then 2 players flanked to the deep corners on both sides of the floor. Just generally having both of those wings completely opened up and having the opportunity and ability to attack in space. He's been accustomed to attacking in the tightest of crevices over the course of his career. At this point with the Suns, there's just so many, for him especially, wide open driving lanes that he's, I'm sure, just basking and just feeling open and feeling liberated mentally. And his abilities to turn a corner, get downhill, get a paint touch, put pressure on the rim whenever he wants to. Naturally, that's going to always keep the defense in rotation from there. And we see what happens as the dominoes fall in favor of the Suns. He turns the corner here, holds 2 to the ball, ends up holding 3 to the ball as you see him get a reaction out of the low man. And then he's able to kick it out to Grayson Allen. And then obviously things that they got to let the dust kind of settle and re-space around that. Nonetheless, the defense is kind of just jumbled up at this point. And as the Suns get ready to respace and he respaces off of the drive that Grayson Allen tries to get into, you get the kickback. And again, this is all stemming from all the attention garnered and the pressure put on the rim and the paint from Bradley Beal. He's able to then be the recipient of it. Grayson Allen gets a little bit of a redrive. There's nothing there because he's driving into the help that just came from Bradley Beal's drive. Nonetheless, as it gets back to Beal, now because the defense isn't set yet, because of the tempo at which everything is occurring at, Beal's going to be enabled an opportunity to essentially attack a closeout, and he's able to work in space, boogie to the midi, step back 2. The first of, again, like I said, a 12-point quarter for him, where he was just pulling strings and really creating so much of the offense that the Suns were generating in this period. And then here, this is another rep. This is just his pace and pick and roll has improved so much to both complement and just generally work in tandem with Yusuf Nurkic and the tempo and cadence at which he works at in pick and roll. And when you're able to marry the cadence at which the ball handler is working in pick and roll with the screener, the advantages that you can create are just abundant. And it almost becomes scheme proof in multiple contexts. And we see a little bit of that here. So we see, first of all, we talked about it a lot the last 3 weeks or so. Advantage creation from Yusuf Nurkic. There's an angle flip. So initially starting off on this side, loops around, knowing that they're trying to weak Bradley Beal, keeping him to his weak hand. The Sacramento Kings were in this coverage pretty much all game with Bradley Beal and Devin Booker, So anticipating that coverage, immediately flipping the angle on the screen, allowing for Bradley Beal to work downhill, able to engage Alex Len as he turns the corner a little bit. Look at the hesitation. And again, this is just Bradley Beal creating all of the offense. And then it's not a shot made initially, but then look who's getting the offensive rebound. And then ultimately Grayson Allen knocks down a wide open three-point opportunity. Some of the highest shot quality you get is going to come in transition and from offensive rebound opportunities on second possessions for three-point attempts. And that's where the Suns have been really taking advantage, whether it's from Yusuf Nurkic grabbing offensive rebounds or where the guards work their way in there and they end up coming away with an extra possession and they kick back out as the defense kind of collapses. And just kind of looking at Bradley Beal again, we talked about his cadence and his pace and pick and roll. Just look at the patience on display from him. Slight hesitation at the mesh point, sees that they're not completely putting two to the ball, but they are just kind of holding two to him in the tension. He's able to take that, continue to move them, allows for the defense to settle in, attracts that low help, which is what he's waiting for by way of his patience. You see the Suns respacing around the action with Eric Gordon on the second side starting here, and then ultimately lifting up even further all the way up to at the dome in the middle third of the floor. Spacing is completely optimized, and as we see De'Aaron Fox being tasked with playing 2-on-1 after Bradley Beal is able to attract the attention of the low man in addition to his original man and the man that's guarding the screener. Advantage created in addition to a paint touch. He's able to pass off of the attention that he garners. That's even more important than everything else that he's doing. And again, by way of Bradley Beal's drives that are just so important, maybe the most important element to the Suns' offense, you see them be able to play +1 advantage basketball, wide open opportunity. Again, that's a miss for Eric Gordon, but the shot quality can't get any more green than this right here. Catch and shoot from the dome, straight on, barely a contest. Misses it again, but like I said, Bradley Beal just continuing to find ways to make winning plays. Grabs his offensive rebound as he's completely unaccounted for, and he's able to not just grab it and hold it down, but finds Grayson Allen early before the defense can even react to the offensive rebound that was just garnered. Grayson Allen wide open, best three-point shooter in the league on percentage. That's cash. And then here again, looking at Bradley Beal working with Yusuf Nurkic. Look at the pace and pick and roll, and I pause it here, and I'm going to bring it back because this is the point at which I want you to really start paying attention to Bradley Beal, the dribbles, how he's optimizing everything. There's no wasted movement, no wasted motion in anything that he's doing in this context on this play. So watch him slowly here. Look at the patience. Look at how he allows for the play to develop and how ultimately, again, looking at Yusuf Nurkic from the screen and the advantage it creates in allowing Bradley Beal to pin his man on his hip, he's able to then just be patient. And again, this is the pacing and pick and roll with Bradley Beal. Him being patient, allowing for Yusuf Nurkic to then get into his role, and then watching Yusuf Nurkic's advantage creation play into the entire dynamic as well. With the Gortat screen, something else we've talked about in addition to the angle screen, the screening angles being flipped, that he's been really pressing the button on and tapping the sign on a whole lot the last basically month of the season at this point. You see the Gortat screen from Yusuf Nurkic, but all by way of Bradley Beal being patient. If he wanted to, he could have just took this space right here, crossed back over and veered into the same path that Yusuf Nurkic is ultimately going to roll into. Nobody would have batted an eye. Obviously, at this still frame here, he would have been attacking Alex Len's top foot. It would have been nearly impossible for Len to guard this without fouling, if being able to stop him at all if he wanted to get back to his left hand and get into the paint. Nonetheless, the patience from Beal, in addition to the shakeup from Grayson Allen, allows for a space, just enough space to be created as he veers back into it, puts his defender in jail, and And it allows for, obviously, the advantage from Yusuf Nurkic to step in as well. And he's going to be able to ultimately finish this off, get into the layup with the inside hand to beat that extra help and that low layer of defense. This is just so good, so good. And as we see it again in a little bit more of a zoomed in fashion, Beal's patience, pins his defender in jail. Obviously, we see the Gortat screen from Nurkic. You see him navigate the hand help. You can't really see it from the last frame, but in this frame, you can see it a little bit more. Look at Beal being able to dribble past the hand help, gets to an advantageous pickup point. You see the protection of the ball like a running back, and then the finish. Just good on good on good here in this rep from the Suns. And then now we're going to see Bradley Beal again. Going to be working in pick and roll. And as we see things kind of resettle, we see him again be able to flip the advantage, set him up. Another great screen set from Yusuf Nurkic, completely detaches his man from the ball. And now Bradley Beal in this context is just a bullet going downhill at this point. Talked about him being able to take that angle away from Alex Len if he wanted to on the last possession. A couple possessions later, now going from patient to putting his foot on the pedal and really pushing on the gas. We see him do just that, blow right past Alex Len, be able to turn the corner. This could have obviously been a foul. Nonetheless, he loses his footing, but he's able to turn the corner just enough and again attract the attention of that low help. That's the big thing with Bradley Beal's drives and the multiple reps that we just looked at. When he's able to turn the corner, he's not just attracting the attention of his man and the person that's guarding the screener, but he's also able to attract that extra layer of help where defensive capital is now sinking in with their low man as well. And he's able to just be a fire starter in that sense. And this is advantage creation galore. He's fallen and he's still attracted so much attention from De'Aaron Fox that he's able to ultimately still get this pass on the baseline skip to Eric Gordon. They're going to be able to play +1. And now the Suns are playing an advantage. And that's going to create a closeout for Grayson Allen to attack. You see the closeout. He's able to attack that. A little bit of a Gortat screen again from Yusuf Nurkic. You just can't. He does it so often at this point in the season. He's just creating opportunities for his guards to get up attempts at the basket in a less congested area, just kind of clearing up some room for them to get up to the cup. And we see Grayson Allen, wrong-footed finish here, switch hands on Alex Len, and it's gonna be a bucket for the Suns. Again, you just can't say enough about all the little things that Yusuf Nurkic does within the layers of the offense for the Suns, but also generally what the Suns are able to do in tandem with him and the fires being started from Bradley Beal on a consistent basis and how it just opens up the floor for everything for the Suns. Just makes them hard to guard. And again, you're able to see it again from a different angle here, how Grayson Allen is able to get up, wrong-footed finish, switching hands to evade the contest, extended arm, takes the contact, flips it up, +1. All right, and then here, you see the Suns off a sideline out of bounds. They love to get into their misdirection from sideline out of bounds and baseline out of bounds. We see just that here. Bradley Beal typically sets this screen here for Kevin Durant, and then he flows into Chicago action, a screen into a handoff with Yusuf Nurkic. However, in this context here, we see them generate pace and the reaction advantage with Bradley Beal ghosting the screen off ball with Kevin Durant. And you see the reaction it gets as I pause it here, as Bradley Beal's man is completely left in the dust at this point. And you see the separation that comes from it. He's going to try to cheat it and meet Bradley Beal on the other side, but it's just too much separation, in addition to Yusuf Nurkic understanding that Sabonis is at the level of the screen with Bradley Beal, and he's going to be able to either slip this or be able to just time up his role to where he detaches Bradley Beal's original man completely from the ball. Does just that here. And you see the advantage created in the space. Sabonis is expecting his teammate to obviously navigate the screen, but Keon Ellis is not able to navigate it because he tries to duck under, in addition to Nurkic just completely cutting the angle and taking away that leverage for him to recover back to the ball. Ultimately, nobody recovers to the ball. Bradley Beal isn't able to pull up pocket. And this is as green a shot quality as Bradley Beal is ever going to see. And it's all stemming again from misdirection, movement, advantage creation. At the end is the cherry on top from Yusuf Nurkic. Advantage Suns. Bradley Beal deposits 3 more. Suns tie the game. And then now we're seeing Bradley Beal again. Last rep was with Kevin Durant back on the floor. Now we're seeing it with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker back on the floor. So it's a starting lineup back on the floor for the Suns. And we're seeing Bradley Beal again initiating offense. And this is something I was tweeting about yesterday. I tweeted about it during the game, talked about it on the podcast as well with Gerald Bourguet with PHNX in our latest Take That for Data episode. Looking at the Suns working out of the stack formation and just getting into multiple counters. We even talked about it in my last film session from that second game against the Los Angeles Clippers on Wednesday. Them just working into multiple counters and read and react offense out of stack formation. And using Kevin Durant even more so in that context the last 3 games as well. I think it's important in process. We see the ram screen set from Kevin Durant for Jusuf Nurkic. He then flows into the screen on ball for Bradley Beal, as we talked about in the very first rep. The Kings were working to weak him, keep him to his weak hand, especially in the middle third actions, to try to kind of take away some of his abilities to make passes and get downhill with some of his reads. Nonetheless, Bradley Beal is very much up to task. Solid job from Jusuf Nurkic, just getting a bit of a screen there just for Bradley Beal to be able to hold 2 to the ball. And I would like to see Beal string this out just a little bit more so that Sabonis can't leave so quickly. Nonetheless, Beal does his job just enough in holding 2 to the ball and making Sabonis have to react because the Suns are getting into a veer action from this middle third of the floor. So they go stack, ram screen, screen for the screener that's ultimately setting a screen on ball, and then veer. So a screen on ball from Nurkic that immediately flows into a screen off the ball for a shooter. And we see just that here. And what they're doing in this context of offense is making Sabonis work. They're putting a lot of stress on him across multiple possessions, knowing he's up at the level of the screen, on ball or off ball. So what they're doing in this context is making him get up to the screen multiple times. This is extremely tough, especially for even the most mobile of front court players to do and execute on consistency. And the Suns are just putting strain and stress on him. And we see a great screen set from Jusuf Nurkic, allowing for Kevin Durant to curl, turn that corner. And obviously, like I talked about, because he has to travel from so far at the level of the screen here with Bradley Beal to then having to go back and revert back and then get back up to the level of the screen on Kevin Durant again, that just completely undoes all of the help, just completely compromises the shell of the Kings defense. And Kevin Durant is able to curl it, engage him, and then hit a +1 over to Jusuf Nurkic. No low help at all in any capacity from the Kings. Advantage Suns, and that's a bucket for Nurkic. And then we see the Suns again working in the half court, and then we're going to see it ultimately flow over to Royce O'Neal. And we're going to see him getting in a 2-man play with Kevin Durant. And this is where, especially specifically with Royce O'Neal, I feel like he's the Suns' best option as a small screener, just because he excels well at both popping or ghosting or blurring screens, obviously rolling and obviously actually setting screens, but also being able to get into this short roll and play make with a certain level of swiftness, not just on his processing of a defense, but also his ability on delivery of passes. I think that's a little thing that's just so important in process for them. It's going to grow more important as these games transition to postseason play. And we're going to see the values that Royce O'Neal brings perk up even more in timely manners. We see him, again, slip this, knowing that they're trying to switch it. There's not an aggressive switch from the Kings. You can already see the slip from Royce, getting a reaction advantage. Nobody's in the paint with Jusuf Nurkic spaced at the dome. He's able to slip into that space, put pressure on that low help, and obviously on the catch, you see him with a quick processing over to Grayson Allen. And because of how quickly he just knows where the defense is, he's able to get the catch. Great pass on timing from Kevin Durant. He's able to catch, read, and he makes this pass off of field. Just knowing where Grayson Allen has respaced at to completely just stretch the rotations and make these rotations even more dynamic for the Kings. He's able to get into this catch and shoot opportunity and gets it up before Sabonis can truly recover. Advantage Suns. And when they put this type of stress on the defense with consistency, this is when they're optimized, regardless of what the lineup combinations are. And again, by way of Nurkic being spaced above the break, that makes those rotations, especially for a center, once the Suns are able to get a defensive rotation, that much more dynamic, that much more compromising, and just generally that much more hard to execute on consistency. And then here looking at the Suns again on offense, Bradley Beal with the ball now. Comes off of the screen. There's nothing there. Not the best of spacing. They're just kind of jumbled up a little bit at this point. Nothing comes of this rep initially. Kicks back out to Devin Booker. And I just wanted to talk about this rep quickly because I think this was important. You see this little bit of a screen here set from Bradley Beal. And then he just kind of gets out of there. But the timing at which Devin Booker is going to end up going from assessing and reading the defense here, as you see them respacing a little bit, Bradley Beal ends up just slipping out of there. But look at the timing at which Devin Booker decides to drive. As you see Royce O'Neal respace to move that nail help, in addition to Bradley Beal just kind of slipping out of there, Devin Booker's timing on when he decides to drive still ends up engaging not just his man in Murray, but also Ellis, who's guarding Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal is just respacing to create a driving lane for Devin Booker. But with Devin Booker's drive going directly towards the middle, you can kind of see Keon Ellis being re-engaged by Devin Booker. But no one's rotated back over to help on Bradley Beal. So there's a pocket where Devin Booker is able to hit Bradley Beal. He does just that here. Great delivery. Great job from Bradley Beal keeping his eye on the ball and also understanding that he's open. He's unoccupied at the moment. Able to get up a catch. Good job on the pump fake. And then the hoop plus the harm +1 at a crucial juncture of the game. Just really good process from the Suns playing at read and react late in the clock in multiple scenarios in this comeback against the Sacramento Kings. And then now we get to this point. I mentioned the Suns were +8 generally in the fourth quarter. And now at this juncture, in the last 4 minutes and 29, after the 2 free throws that Kevin Durant made going into this defensive possession, the Suns will also be +8. They will hold the Sacramento Kings to 1 for 10 from the field in this specific stretch. And the Suns will also have a 120 offensive rating in this stretch as well. So all of those things kind of adding up to the Suns ultimately making this comeback and winning by 1. And I just want to dive into a lot of the things that we saw in this stretch even more so. So here on this first possession, we're just going to see Bradley Beal doing a good job navigating. And this is just competing. This is just the level of energy, the level of activity that Bradley Beal is infusing this team with. And this is leadership. This is what they need from him on consistency. They don't need him to do some of the things that Kevin Durant and Devin Booker do, but they just need Bradley Beal to be Bradley Beal, be that athlete, bring some of that point of attack athleticism and activity that they need in the worst way in the lineups that they like to close games with and even start games with. But looking at it in the closing context here, we see him doing just that at the point of attack, navigates the screen, is able to keep Nurkic in his drop without having to go to that late switch button that they have to press a lot of times in these scenarios. Bradley Beal just competing, flows over, gets the block on the release point, Suns are out on the break. And then looking at Bradley Beal initiating again. This is one of my favorite things from the Suns that they've been getting into a lot of late. We talked about Kevin Durant operating from that middle third of the floor. We see them getting into specifically on this rep here, excuse me as I get back to it. We see Kevin Durant receiving stagger screens. Now, obviously, Grayson Allen doesn't truly set the initial stagger because Harrison Barnes kind of preemptively navigates it. Nonetheless, you can still see Kevin Durant working off of multiple screens, having multiple people just kind of getting in the way of whoever it is that's guarding him to detach him from that aggressive coverage that he always sees. And then Durant's going to ultimately be able to flow upward, get just enough separation, gets a catch as close to the nail as possible. And then you see the Suns going to respace around it. Great dive cut here from Bradley Beal, understanding respacing, not just clearing that wing, but also giving Kevin Durant a driving lane that he can attack to. In this scenario, Kevin Durant loves to get to his left hand and get to that area below the free throw line, but before the block on the left side of the floor when he's working in isolation, whether it's a 1 dribble or 2 dribble pull up, regardless of how much pressure is applied to the ball, he's able to navigate to these crevices within the defense, and he gets to these pull-up pockets, and this is as good as a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar hook shot, Hakeem Olajuwon hook shot, Kobe and MJ fadeaways. He gets to his left-hand pull-up here in this specific area of the floor, and he hardly ever misses, let alone hardly ever even hits the rim on these shots. And because his release point is so high, and he's got the defense trying to recover because of the pressure that he's able to navigate with and just kind of creating space for himself, and a fade in addition to all of that, look at the contests around him. He has 3 separate hands of contests from the defense here. And they have literally no impact on his release, man. It's incredible. And this is just the greatness of Kevin Durant. And I talked about the ball barely even touching the rim when he's getting to this left-hand pull-ups from this left area of the floor. Like I said, below the free throw line and before the block on the left side of the floor. It's just cash money for the easy money sniper. And we see him knock down another pull-up jumper from that area of the floor again. And then here we see them working off of out of delay. We get to them getting into Chicago action. Got the screen into the handoff of Kevin Durant. We see Sabonis pressure on the ball. And then we see Kevin Durant able to turn the corner. Again, Jusuf Nurkic, knowing that they're putting 2 to the ball, knowing that Sabonis is showing at the level of the screen, flat showing, if you will, flat hedging. Slips the screen again, completely discards a Harrison Barnes, allows for Kevin Durant to work against Sabonis. You see Sabonis completely jumping over to try to take away the angle from Kevin Durant. But because of the contact created from Jusuf Nurkic and his timing on the slipping of this screen, look at the leverage that's conceded. And again, because it's delay, it's 5-out action, the paint is completely unoccupied. There's nobody in the paint right now. Jusuf Nurkic is rolling into that with a full head of steam. He's got the leverage on the person that's ultimately trying to late switch to him. Now he's completely unoccupied. Greatly timed pass here from Kevin Durant on the pocket to Jusuf Nurkic. You see he's out-leveraged the original low help that would have been Keegan Murray here. He's late with his reaction, partly because of the spacing, but also because of Grayson Allen just being who he is. See the catch here from Jusuf Nurkic. He's able to get downhill. And again, not unlike Royce O'Neal, in these contexts on the short roll, he's optimized. He's going to be able to get quick processing and a quick pass to continue within the advantage that's created. +1 over to Devin Booker. And again, no shot comes directly from it, but they got the Kings again, the basically emphasis of this film session, they got them in rotation. +1, defense rotating, another +1, another drive, help, another +1. Grayson Allen wide open, no shot comes from it, but again, they're still playing in space. The defense is just completely unbalanced, and it flows ultimately into an opportunity for Jusuf Nurkic. Free throws for the Suns. They just put so much stress when they nail their spacing. They get into action with movement, get those moving targets from their big 3 especially, and then they're able to play in a short roll, undo the defense from inside out, and then play advantage basketball and read and react from there. Very good reps in general in this game from the Suns doing just that. And that was just another rep. And then here looking at the defense, good job from Jusuf Nurkic, getting up to the level of the screen here. Didn't necessarily need to with Keon Ellis being the ball handler here, but it was just kind of a habit just because of the fire that De'Aaron Fox became in the late stretch of this game. Nonetheless, he does a solid job. And then they get into another screen. Great job here from Devin Booker navigating that from De'Aaron Fox. That's action that obviously the Suns have run a lot over the last couple of seasons for Devin Booker in multiple contexts. Nonetheless, great job defensively from Book. And this is the thing I wanted to point out most. After the screen navigation from Devin Booker, it's right here. De'Aaron Fox, obviously a left-hand player, one of the best players in the league, especially when he gets to his left hand in the fourth quarters. Look at how Devin Booker is influencing him, forcing him, really keeping him to that right hand, telling him he's not getting back to his left hand. You can see it even there on the jab step. Gets into that hip, creates contact, physical to the legal limit. But I want to also, after watching Devin Booker do his job at the point of attack, look at Bradley Beal in the gap. He's at that opposite elbow, making sure he takes away that driving lane as well. Appropriately gapped off of Keon Ellis as well. Still framing here. This is perfect picture frame defense from the Suns. Great job just generally against the movement and then the presentation, showing help in the gaps. Really, really, really good, sound, sharp defense here from the Suns. Job well done. They can't even use the screen at this point. Late clock, nothing's happening. Again, Bradley Beal even more aggressively in the gap. And then look at him go from gapping on defense. They try to stampede him here on the catch here with Keon Ellis. Good job here from him. But look at Bradley Beal on the recovery. Anticipates the angle, takes it away. Kevin Durant's there to help him as well. Ultimately, it's not even needed because Bradley Beal does such a great job from help to recover in point A to point B, cutting off the drive, turning them around even more so. Late in the clock, the Kings have nothing going on. They're going to get up a skip pass here, and then we see Grayson Allen there again on the catch with Keegan Murray. And look at the contest late in the clock. This is just great, picture-perfect defense from the Suns. He's into the hip. Keegan Murray's going to ultimately get away with a travel here. And ultimately, even more so than that, look at the contest from Grayson Allen. Impacting the release, impacts the trajectory on the release. This is not Keegan Murray's typical trajectory on his arc for his shots. It's a miss. But this is where the Suns just bail teams out in the slightest of moments. All of this great defense we just talked about. And then we're going to watch Kevin Durant here. As the shot goes up, Jusuf Nurkic does a great job boxing out Sabonis. He's got positioning. That doesn't always mean he's going to be able to get the rebound, as these tip outs and these tap backs from opponents always end up turning to being 50-50 balls. Kevin Durant anticipates Jusuf Nurkic grabbing a rebound, and he leaves Harrison Barnes unaccounted for as he crashes the offensive glass. This is a non-negotiable no-no. And I mentioned the Kings only scored 4 points in the last 4 minutes and 29 seconds. This was 2 of those 4. Harrison Barnes just casually coming into the picture, getting this offensive rebound. Just little things that the Suns have to clean up. They got to be better playing for the full 24 seconds, getting those box outs, and then crashing the glass. Not always anticipating Jusuf Nurkic being able to grab the rebound to stamp the end to the defensive possession. And then here on this possession, again, looking at the Suns on defense, this is just going to be a quick one. Nothing else to look at but Bradley Beal in heavy denial on De'Aaron Fox. They obviously want to get the ball to him and really get their offense started late in the clock from sideline out of bounds. Bradley Beal says absolutely not. The heavy denial, the steal, and then the finish at the basket. And again, talking about how close things were for the Suns coming back for this lead to ultimately win a game. Those little moments like that matter. And I want to look at this last rep for the Suns and just want to highlight Jusuf Nurkic. But even before that, looking at this rep, this is something defense playoff-wise that I feel more teams are going to potentially show with the Suns. And that's them conceding space to players like Grayson Allen in moments. We saw it a lot in this game against the Kings, where the Kings were helping off of the strong corner to aid and show support on drives. Sometimes it was Kevin Durant. There was a 2-play stretch in the third quarter where they helped off of Kevin Durant from the strong corner. He was able to get up uncontested 3-point opportunities on back-to-back possessions. And I think teams are going to risk that gambit, not necessarily when it's Kevin Durant space, but when it's players like Eric Gordon, Royce O'Neal, and Grayson Allen space, off of a Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker type of drive. We see just that here on this final possession for the Suns. Kevin Durant does a good job attacking the space, and look at the help coming off of Grayson Allen from De'Aaron Fox in that strong corner. I think teams are going to make this gambit a little bit more frequently, and it's going to be on the Suns 3-point shooters to do what they were being paid to do and compromise the defense and make them pay and knock down shots like this. Now, Grayson Allen misses this shot, and we're going to pay attention to the subject mostly of this rep here, Jusuf Nurkic. Just his ability and the pressure he puts on teams to account for him on the glass. It's almost like teams have to double team Nurkic at moments because he's just so good at pursuing the ball, understanding angles, understanding trajectory from specific shooters, and knowing how to maneuver himself into positioning for offensive rebounds. And he does just that here. Obviously, this is going to end up being a foul from Sabonis, and the shot is not going to count even if it went in. But just great from Jusuf Nurkic, understanding his role and just nailing the little thing.